Hey there, Justin. I thought I would just make a screencast reply to your screencast. It would probably be more efficient so I can address everything you had mentioned in there. Um, Great job doing that screencast. I really appreciated getting to hear your voice and getting to hear you talk about writing. Don't worry that you weren't able to get your webcam to work. That's not a requirement for these screencasts. The audio is really sufficient. I do love seeing people if that's a possibility, but it's certainly not something you're going to lose points for or anything like that. So thanks for doing the screencast, and I think you did a nice job with it. It's totally fine that you read the comments that you made. I thought you read them slowly, and I could follow them just fine. If it makes you more comfortable to read, you're certainly welcome to do that. But also know that if you just want to talk through, you can also make an outline and just kind of use that as a guide to keep you on track while you're making your screencast, just so you don't feel like you have to write up a script every single time. But really, anything that makes you comfortable with it, I'd say go ahead and do. So you'll notice on the screen here, I've just put some notes. I picked up on some things that you said in the screencast and just wanted to elaborate on them for you a little bit more here. You had mentioned that you had been through the sequence starting at 060, and so now you're moving on to 090 and 121. And under the old model, you would have been just taking English 090 this semester, and you probably would have written maybe like 4 papers in there, and then you would have gone on to 121 and taken that afterwards. And so obviously with this new model, we're trying to combine it all into one, which is partly why the course load feels pretty heavy for you this semester, but we'll talk about that as we get further down in the list of notes here. I think, you must have had a good experience with 060. If you tested into 060, then I think you must have learned a lot, because when I look at your writing, I'm not seeing a lot of issues. It doesn't look like 060 level writing to me, so I'm confident that you must have gotten something out of that class, or maybe you've been writing for other classes since then, but your writing definitely looks to me above a 060 level. As I mentioned earlier, I think it's at a 121 level, and so I think you should feel pretty good about that. You had mentioned your thesis claim because I had pointed out that you had one. You had said you weren't even exactly clear on what a thesis was, so I thought I would just explain it to you here. Basically, a thesis claim is your essay point or your argument in a nutshell. So whatever it is that your 3 or 5 or 8 paragraphs are about, the thesis is where you boil it down to just 1 or 2 sentences. And so in your writing diagnostic, this was the sentence that I had identified as your thesis, where you said, I agree that it's important to instill a growth mindset into children, but I also believe this mindset is valuable to everyone. So what a reader can figure out from that is that you have a position. Your position is that you agree with what Carol Dweck is saying. And specifically, she's saying we need to instill a growth mindset into children. But then you're adding your own position onto it, which is that let's not limit this to children. Let's, think of this as being important for everyone. And then your essay actually focuses on that because you use your own examples from your own life, and you're certainly not a child when you're pulling those experiences. So so this was what cues the reader in as to what the rest of the essay is going to be about, and that's really what a thesis should do. It should be kind of like a map, sort of like a reader cue, to say, hey there, in case you didn't know, this is what this paper is going to be about. And so a thesis claim usually comes somewhere toward the beginning of the paper, and then oftentimes it's reinforced again in the conclusion paragraph. And so we'll talk more specifically about that throughout 121, but I just wanted to address that since you had brought it up. You had mentioned that you felt as a writer, something that you struggle with is just general sense of confidence with writing. And I know in one of your posts you had said something about reading as well. It's just not something that you're all that comfortable engaging in. And so thank you for being upfront and honest about that. I think it's really, really common. A lot of students in college find it really challenging to build confidence as a reader and as a writer, especially if you haven't done it in a while, or if you've been out of school for a while, or it's just not something that you have spent a lot of time doing. So it takes a while, I think, to build up the confidence in those areas. And that's part of what we're trying to do in the studio section or the CCR section. And one of the reasons I gave you all the Dweck article for the writing diagnostic is because I really do believe what she has to say about our beliefs about having a fixed mindset versus having a growth mindset. And so as you're struggling with confidence in writing, I would just encourage you to say, um, to look at it through the lens of, yes, this is challenging for me, but I'm getting better at it, rather than a fixed lens, which would be, I'm really not very good at this, because as Dweck's research shows, we really do improve when we are able to look at a challenge and see the potential of succeeding in that challenge, or at least improving within that challenge. And so I think your writing, if you tested it in an O6 level, you have already improved a great deal. And so I think you should feel pretty good about that, and just expect to keep taking that forward this next semester. You also talked about this idea of writer's block and getting things onto the page, and I think I'm gonna give you a resource for that in the reply to your screencast, in the text. But I'll just say here that I think one of the best things you can do, and this comes up in our this textbook reading that we did from this book early on in the semester, is Bruce Ballinger talks about writing badly. And I'd say, if you really feel like it's hard to get words on the page, just give yourself the permission to write badly early on in the process. Tell yourself, that's not what I'm going to submit. My teacher isn't going to see this, other students aren't going to see this, but I'm going to just write a draft. And even if it's terrible, and even if it doesn't make a lot of sense, it helps us, I think, to loosen up our flow of thoughts if we can at least start getting something on the page. And so that would be the best first step, I'd say, toward breaking through writer's block. There's a great essay called Shitty First Drafts by a woman named Anne Lamott, and we are going to read that later on in the semester, so you'll get a chance to see what she has to do with it, or what she has to say about that. But I would say, yeah, just, really free writing, allowing your thoughts to flow, rather than getting stuck on that very first sentence and having to perfect it before you move on. So that would be my advice for now. You mentioned the workload for English 121 being pretty intense, and I just wanted to address that. I think you're absolutely right. It is a lot. And I think with that comment, you were suggesting for the whole learning community, when you said English 121, the workload was a lot. I didn't know if you just meant the writing portion from the learning community, or if you were referring to both the English and the philosophy. And so, what you really have here is you have 9 credits. Oops, I have to spell. And that's a lot. I mean, I almost consider that a full schedule for students taking 9 credits, and that's exactly how many credits you're enrolled in this semester. So you have the CCR class, the 121 class, and the philosophy class all rolled into one experience. So it is a lot. It's almost like, if you think about it, if you were taking 3 separate courses at one time, that's how much work it is. So absolutely, it's a ton of work. It's a lot to manage. And so my suggestion to you is to just really develop the skill of planning your weeks. And I would say, we usually post the agenda about a week early, or at least, I'm sorry, a few days early on Thursday before the week starts. I'd say print it out as soon as you can, and both for the learning community class and then also for the CCR studio class, and then just sit down with a day planner or a calendar and really map out what you have to do for the week. I definitely think that if you look at the amount of work that we have for the 9 credits, it's probably the same amount that it would be if you were taking 3 separate courses, possibly even a little less, but it feels like so much because it's all in one place. And so that can be really overwhelming for students. I would say just really work on organizing that, setting some due dates for yourself throughout the week. So far, you've done a great job of keeping up to speed and staying on track with everything, but yeah, I'd say just take control of it. Don't let those deadlines sneak up on you. Just, print out those agendas and write out your plan for the week at the beginning of each week, and I think you're going to feel like you're able to stay on top of it. If at any point in the semester you start to feel like I am really struggling to keep up here, let me know. Eric and I would love to help you strategize so that you don't fall off track. We definitely want to see you get through all these courses and do a really great job with them. So, okay, well, thanks for watching this screencast, Justin, and I really look forward to working with you more. Thanks.